Hey everybody, it's Natalie Bencavanga, and welcome to another episode of Facts Over Fear. You know, Mississippi isn't where most people expect to see a competitive U.S. Senate race, but that assumption is exactly what's being challenged right now. Scott Colom is a career prosecutor who spent nearly a decade as district attorney in Mississippi's 16th Judicial District, taking on violent crime, public corruption, even winning convictions against law enforcement, while also launching the state's first restorative justice program. He was nominated for a federal judgeship by President Biden, but that nomination was blocked by Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. So now he's running for her seat. That's very interesting. He's already won the Democratic primary with 67% of the vote, and he's doing it in a state where Democrats haven't won a Senate race in decades. So if elected, Scott will be Mississippi's first Black U.S. Senator in nearly 150 years. But this campaign isn't just about history. It's about whether the story we tell ourselves about the Deep South is actually true. So the question is Mississippi as politically fixed as we think, or have structural barriers like voter suppression, gerrymandering, and the lack of investment in candidates and messaging shaping that perception? And if that's the case, what happens when someone tries to change it? Thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you today, Scott.
Natalie, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience.
Absolutely. So let's just dig right in. You've built your career as a prosecutor in Mississippi. What made you decide that now was the moment to run for U.S. Senate, especially given that state's political history?
Well, in 2015, when I decided to run for district attorney, it was against a 27-year incumbent. And I was running in a part of the state that a lot of people thought I couldn't win. It wasn't like a super blue area. It was, red to purple. Mm-hmm. And I was running on criminal justice reform. I was openly saying that we needed to be tough on violent crime, but we needed to be smart on nonviolent crime. We just couldn't send young people to prison for first-time nonviolent mistakes because that ruined young people's life and it didn't make the community safer. And people did not think I could win. They told me, you can't win. And I ran because I felt like my predecessor was not doing a good job keeping the community safe and the courtroom fair. And I trusted the voters in Mississippi that they would, if I campaigned hard, if I raised money, if I could get my message out, that they would give me an opportunity to serve. And that election, I was able to win, and I was able to continue to get reelected. I've been reelected twice since then, outperformed Vice President Harris by 11 points in my area of the state. And so, I know how to win tough races. The other thing about Mississippi that I think people don't focus enough on is when someone says, we haven't won Mississippi in a while, don't give the Democratic Party too much credit, right? They haven't been trying. I've been in public service and watching politics for 15 years in Mississippi. I can count on one hand how many times the Democratic Party has actually tried to win Mississippi. Most of the time, they focus on other states. And for too often, the National Democratic Party has said, okay, all we got to do is win the big cities and the suburbs, and we can ignore rural America. And that has caused us to be in the situation we are in right now. Because when you ignore voters, what you do is get bad outcomes. And in Mississippi, the bad outcomes have caused someone like Cindy Hyde-Smith to cause a lot of pain for Mississippians. So when you ask me why am I running for United States Senate, it's because her leadership is bad for Mississippi. If you look at the tariffs, they are causing chaos for our small farmers. We've got a lot of farmers that were selling soybeans to customers that they no longer can sell them to. A lot of small businesses are struggling. I was talking to, in my area of the state, a Republican who was selling a particular type of ammunition you need for hunting. Part of that chemicals he needs for that ammunition came from China. The cost of that went through the roof. He had to lay off half of his employees.
Wow. Chaos.
That's what the tariffs are doing. And then you look at healthcare. What Cindy Hyde-Smith did is a betrayal of the people of Mississippi. Two things she did. One, we were disproportionately, as working Mississippians, getting federal support from the Affordable Care Act, the subsidies that the Democrats and Republicans were fighting over in the first shutdown, right? We were disproportionately getting a lot of help for that. She voted to let that federal support go away. The Republican insurance commissioner projects 200,000 Mississippians are going to lose health care because of that decision.
And I want to, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go what you were saying.
No, I wanted to circle back around about her in particular because your federal judgeship nomination, like I mentioned at the beginning here, was blocked by Senator Hyde-Smith. Now that very seat that you're running for. Let's talk a little bit about how that experience sort of shaped your decision as well, because I'm hearing a lot about where you differentiate on the issues. But just talk about that a little bit from a humanistic perspective, this full circle moment you're having.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, that experience was very personal because my wife and I really prayed about the decision to try to become a federal judge because that was not something that I had really dreamed of doing. It was an opportunity that came about as a potential way to give back to my community. And, I knew that it was going to be a lot of work balancing being a current district attorney and doing what's necessary to get nominated. And we prayed over that. We were really confident that, that was going to work out. And I got the support of Congressman Benny Thompson, the senior congressman, Democratic congressman, and Senator Roger Wicker, the senior Republican senator. So I had bipartisan support. And then when Cindy Hyde-Smith blocked it, it was very frustrating to my wife. For me, I was able to get over it easily because of my profession. Sure. I mean, I have to deal with people that have lost their loved ones to gun violence. I mean, I've had cases where a mother lost her 6-year-old daughter at a birthday party. And I had to console her and explain to her how we were going to get justice for her. So it's hard for me to, be that upset about something when I have to deal with such, humanistic situations on a honestly daily basis. But what I did do, though, is, after getting such bipartisan support, I said, well, let me look into her record as a United States senator. And I found out she voted against the infrastructure package that Senator Roger Wicker voted for that brought $4 billion to the state of Mississippi for roads and bridges. And she would come to the ribbon cuttings for the new construction work for roads, not telling anybody that she voted against the money. I found out that she voted against the money that was needed to repair the Jackson water crisis. We had a situation in Jackson, Mississippi, where children and families did not have clean water. They couldn't take showers. And, the whole state came together to try to help in that situation. She voted against the money that was used to repair that system. So it wasn't the fact that she disappointed me that motivated me to run. It's the fact that I felt as if she was betraying the voters of Mississippi. And that's what I'm outlining about her record, because that's what people have to understand when they say, how are you going to win? She is uniquely bad. She is uniquely bad.
And I want to touch on a little bit about some of the things that you've uniquely done in your line of work that have helped support the community to really have people understand where you stand on a lot of these issues, because I think you're really showcasing sort of some glaring differences between the way things have gone on and the way that they could go. So you've secured convictions in more than 95% of your jury trials, including cases involving corrupt law enforcement. But you've also, like I said, launched Mississippi's first restorative justice program as a formal social worker. That really resonates with me because I think this country loves to talk about punishment, but we don't love to talk about supporting people and investing in people so that they can come out of a situation better, more productive, more joyful community members, right, that give back to their communities. So let's talk a little bit about how all of those approaches of your current work would influence you as a senator, and what do they say about your philosophy on justice and governance?
Thank you so much for that question, because my philosophy is rooted in community. It's from what I've learned from listening to people, showing up in the community. And I'll tell you, when it comes to the criminal justice system, you talk about the 95% conviction rate. I'm very proud of that. When I first got elected, I was 32 years old. I was the youngest person in my office.
Wow.
Everybody in my staff was older than me. And I felt that what I needed to do to lead was to show people that I would try tough cases, I would be in the courtroom, and I tried 35 jury trials, and all of them were murders, rapes, sexual assault of children, very, very serious offenses because I wanted to make sure people understood that they could trust me to keep their community safe, because you do have to address violence in a way that holds people accountable. Sure. But I'm just as proud that I've also found creative ways to help rehabilitate people. You know, we had a pretrial diversion program when I got into office where we hired a social worker to make sure that we could take people that made first-time nonviolent offenses, instead of putting them through the traditional criminal justice system, we tried to help them find a job if necessary. We tried to help them get rehabilitation if necessary. Whatever we could to help them get them back on track. And I put more people in that program, more young people, in 1 year than my predecessor put in 8 years combined. And over 10 years, that's thousands of people. And then the restorative justice is all about the healing of the victim. Because, you know, people often will talk about victims and they use the rhetoric of, I'm gonna be for the victims, I'm gonna represent victims. But the reality is our system does very, very little to support victims, very little. And oftentimes what survivors of violence want first is to know what happened. You know, what caused this harm? Victims of crime, what caused this harm? We would get that question. And all they were getting most of the time was somebody saying, you know, I admit, I plead guilty. No explanation of what happened, just I plead guilty. Wow. And I learned from, you know, different advocacy groups that restorative justice is a way to get victims more and get them, it's a holistic approach to service. And I'm really proud to be the first person to do that. It's been very successful. And I've done it from as simple as, you know, grand larceny all the way up to murder, where I've, you know, had people who lost their brother to a murder. The main thing they wanted from me was to know why the person felt that was necessary in that moment so they could heal from it. And the other thing that we have to do, just real quickly, I've learned from being DA, is that we got to look at front-end solutions. So as United States Senator, the thing that I think we got to do to actually prevent crime is to invest in good-paying jobs and invest in education, because that's how you actually stop crime from happening. Yeah. You know, prosecuting crime is after it happened. So what I would do is bring good-paying jobs, make sure our teachers are taken care of, make sure our cops have what they need, because those are the people that are going to really help us prevent crime.
And it seems like that really did resonate with people, because you won the primary by 67% or with 67%.
73% of all, actually.
Oh, please correct me. That's even better. Okay, with 73% of the vote. That's wonderful. So can you talk a little bit about when you look at such a number, because that's a huge percentage to win the primary by 73%. What message resonated with your voters? How are you thinking about expanding that into a general election message because of the deep South, you know, that you're up against, basically?
I think there's two things that I'm really up against, that, which is why it's so important that you give me the opportunity to talk about Mississippi. Yeah. Mississippi has been making progress politically that really does not get a lot of national attention. I mean, if you look at 2018, Mike Espy got within 5 points to win the United States Senate seat, Sidney Highsmith's first time. He got very little attention, very little national support in his race. 2019, 4 points. Jim Hood, Democrat candidate for governor, gets 4 points to win it. 2023, Brandon Presley gets within 3 points of becoming Democratic governor for Mississippi. Last year, we broke the supermajority in the state Senate. And this year, people told me, listen, you can't build momentum. Well, not only did we win by 73% of the vote, we increased turnout by 90%. Wow. So you look at 2024, Trump won the state against Vice President Harris by 23 points. The gap between Republican voters and Democratic voters in the primary was 3 points. And that's because whenever, you know, as a candidate, if you can make the race about Mississippi, you have a chance to win. Whenever it's national, that's when it gets very, very difficult. But for me, that's why I picked the theme, Mississippi Matters, because I'm running to make Mississippi better. That's why I want to go to the United States Senate. It's because I want to make sure the farmers have what they need to survive. Small businesses have a voice in D.C. You know, the person that you know, the kidney transplant survivor that I met in Harrisburg, Mississippi, that told me how worried she is about Medicaid cuts. I want to make sure that she has a voice in D.C. that's going to make sure we prioritize her health over the well-being of millionaires and billionaires who don't even live in Mississippi. So that's why we're going to win, because the race is about Mississippi. And we also are a lot more competitive than people realize. Now, to kind of make one final point, because this is also really important, I think people are missing it. You know, I go out and I talk to a lot of voters. I mean, I'm always asking voters what matters to them. Anybody listening to this, follow me on social media. Every Monday, today I'm going to drop it at probably 6. It's a video called Mississippi Matters Monday, and I'm asking voters what matters to them. And I do that even when the camera's not on. I always ask voters what matters to them. People are really surprised to be asked that.
Yeah.
They're not used to being listened to.
That's right.
They aren't. Voters aren't. And I'll tell you the other thing. People think too much about the profile of the candidate. You know, nationally, it's like, well, if we get this type of candidate, this is the one that will win. As someone who talks to these voters, it's not about the candidate as much as campaigning. We need to be showing up, listening to voters, making sure their concerns are being addressed and heard. Because the number one answer I get when I ask what matters to voters is someone who does what they say they're going to do. The enemy in politics is people don't trust the politicians. No matter your profile, they do not trust you. Too many voters don't trust you. So what we got to do is not do 30-second ads that talk about ourselves. We got to go to those communities and we got to listen to them. We got to make sure we understand their needs. And then once we win, we're going to win. We have to deliver for those people. We have to make their life better. Because if we don't make their life better, we're going to be in the same scenario again.
And I wanted to ask, based off of those conversations and speaking to your community members, what are the top 3 issues that are impacting Mississippians the most right now? Because my guess is, and this is what I always say to people, no matter where you live, most of us all want the same things, right? And it all starts right in our own backyards, that change. So what are the 3 things that Mississippians want you to change should they elect you?
I can tell you they're very simple because I hear them all the time.
Okay.
One is they want lower costs. I mean, the tariffs and the costs that they are causing to increase at the grocery store are impacting Mississippians more than any other state because, listen, if you're a rich person in New York, right, that tariff is the same tax on you as if you're a teacher in Mississippi making $35,000 a year. It's the same tariff. So it's going to impact Mississippians more. I hear a lot about costs. Second, wages. People feel like they're not making enough money and they're missing time out with their family. You know, I had a person tell me, listen, not only do I have to teach, but I got to do Uber on the weekends. So that means they're not spending time with their loved ones because they're having to work. And I think that the third thing is healthcare. People in Mississippi, we never expanded Medicaid. Right. So we already had too many people that were uninsured. Now you take away 200,000 people that were getting insurance on the Affordable Care Act are going to lose it. And then next year, another 140 are expected to lose it because of the Medicaid cuts. That is going to drastically change the landscape of healthcare in Mississippi. And, you know, I was in Marshall County. It's a small rural county in northeast Mississippi the other day. Natalie, they had a doorbell on the hospital. You had to ring a doorbell to get into the hospital.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to be all across the state of Mississippi if we don't make a change. And so that's why we have to go in a new direction. And that's why I'm confident we're going to win.
So do you believe in universal health care as the path forward? Would you support a single payer health care plan or expansion of Medicare or however we want to word it?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe that healthcare is a human right. I believe that we have to have affordable and accessible healthcare. That's a value, but that's important to me. How we get there, I don't want to hypothesize, do too much hypotheticals on that because we have to balance the costs and people's need to, some people are very comfortable with the health insurance they have. I had a person tell me, listen, I love my health insurance. I'm worried about the fact that my health insurance, even if I have it, the reality is the people who don't have it, that's going to cause the hospital to impact my care. So we have to make sure we have a program that is, that's rooted in the fact that everybody should have accessible and affordable health care.
Let's talk a little bit about this moment because there's a few things I wanted to touch on that I mentioned in the very beginning. There is this long-standing narrative that, you're in the Deep South, Mississippi in particular, right, is very conservative. So in your view, after everything that you've just shared, how much of that is really reality? Because I'm hearing people want higher wages. I'm hearing they want health care. I'm hearing they want lower costs. I mean, those are all things that you could say are progressive ideas. So how much of this is the result of voter suppression, gerrymandering, a lack of investment in competitive candidates and platforms? I mean, you alluded to that in the beginning, that the Democrats really haven't been trying. So In
Yeah.
in your mind's eye, when you're out there, what are you actually seeing? Is Mississippi a lost cause?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mississippi is the best investment in politics. And if you look at the the track record of how we've been performing, I mean, you know, I don't want to pick on any state, but since 2008, how much money have we spent trying to win Texas? We've
Mm,
probably spent $1 billion.
mm,
And how much have we spent trying to win Mississippi? Almost nothing. So I think that what I feel like is happening too much is too many people are getting excited about, I'm mad at Lindsey Graham. And so I'm going to throw a bunch of money at his race because I don't like Lindsey Graham. Well, what that tells somebody like Cindy Hyde-Smith is, well, I'm going to just get people to ignore me, but I'm going to never do press. I'm going to never do town halls. I'm going to be totally MIA in the state, so I won't excite anybody to donate to a candidate opposing me. Or we're falling in love with candidates. This candidate is a great speaker. He's charismatic. She's charismatic. I think I'm charismatic. I think I've run tough races. But I can tell you, I've been humbled listening to voters because it's not about us. Mm-hmm. It's about them. It's about, so any candidate that's talking to you about their profile and them, I'll be very suspicious. Because what we got to do is we got to go back to campaigning, listening to voters, showing up in places like Mississippi that have been ignored, because that is how you're going to win. It's got to be about the voters. We have to empower them. We have to show them we care. We're listening. I mean, we've relied too much on 30-second ads. We're doing too much of that. It's got to be more, we have to build support more on the ground, listening to people and centering people's lives and their experiences. And that's my strategy. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to listen to people. And once we get elected, I'm going to deliver.
As we wrap this up, Scott, I just wanted to ask you, if you win, you would be the first Black U.S. Senator from Mississippi in nearly 150 years, which is really astounding.
We had the first. Hiram Rebels was the first senator, for African-American senator.
So this is truly quite a moment, right? So
yeah.
How do you think about the weight and impact of that moment, having had so much space between that first time and possibly to now, both symbolically and in terms of real policy change, because we're seeing the dismantling of DEI. We're seeing women's rights, minority rights, LGBTQIA rights. Everything's been on the chopping block and vilified. Immigrants, their rights have been destroyed. How would this representation, why would it matter in this moment?
I'll tell you, I was the first African-American district attorney elected in my area of the state. And I'm actually the first African-American district attorney elected in a majority white area in Mississippi's history. And my mindset when I got that position was to make sure I wasn't the last, to make sure that nobody could say that because of something I did, that was going to impact other people, opportunities for any other position, right? And so for me, what I would try to do when I'm elected is make sure I'm not the last. There's not another 150 years where somebody gets an opportunity. And being out here campaigning, the recipe is so clear to me. If I focus on what's best for Mississippi and I show up all across the state and make clear why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it's best for the average working person, I will be a successful senator. And that will help change not only Mississippi's future, but it'll change the country's future, because we have to get back to politics that's rooted in people. And that's what I want to do.
And do you think part of that politics being rooted in people means that we should be overturning Citizens United and get some of this dark money out of the system? What are your thoughts on that?
I think we have too much money in politics. It really is too much. You probably have to do a constitutional amendment to overturn it. And that's really going to take a groundswell of support to do it. But I'll tell you, as more and more money gets into politics, I think you're going to get more and more people that don't trust the system. And so people are going to be frustrated enough. And I would certainly I support, the other thing I would say this, I do support overturning it. But I'm telling you, a lot of voters are starting to resist that too. Because they trust the ads so much less, because they know it's a lot of money behind it and they're being sold advertisement. And so I think the people that are going to do well to counteract that are going to be the people that are very, very authentic. And that's why I try to be, and just let people know who I am and the people that are willing to show up. So in some ways, we're going to go back. It's going to force us to go back to grassroots because, the advertising and stuff is just going to be diminished returns.
Scott Colom, thank you so much for joining me for Facts Over Fear. If people want to learn more about your race and more about your platform in particular, where can they go?
ScottColom.com. I appreciate everybody listening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.